Good morning, everyone, or perhaps even good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to the world premiere of Mission Impossible 3 Save Daisy. My name is Imran Idris. I'm Marketing Manager here at Meraki. So what I want to do to start the session off, we have a very action-packed schedule, so I'm going to just start with the agenda. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Cisco Meraki to begin with, particularly for those of you less familiar with how we fit into the wider Cisco organization. I'll then move on to talking about very high level the Cisco Meraki architecture we've developed, and then we'll get straight into the mission. So we'll go over the network scenarios that we've released on Twitter over the past few weeks. Then we'll vote live, so you will have 1 minute to vote live for which scenario you would like us to complete. The chosen scenario will be revealed live on air, and we will then pass over to Ethan Hunt, aka Simon Thompson, who will complete the mission. We'll leave time at the end for a Q&A session. The Q&A session will begin at 9 a.m. If you do have time to stay with us past the top of the hour, that'll be great. If you do have to leave, won't take offense to it. We do have a team of panelists on hand to answer any questions you have as we're going through, so please feel free to keep those guys busy. You can ask them a question at any time, including right now, using the chat functionality on your right-hand Citrix pane. Before we get started, I'm very pleased to announce that all IT professionals attending today's webinar are eligible for a free Cisco Meraki 82.11n access point with a 3-year license. We do ask that you just give us a quick call to confirm some information. Firstly, if you wouldn't mind confirming your shipping information so we can make sure that that access point gets to the correct person at the correct location. And for people joining from the European region, could you also please have your VAT number to hand? We just need that for legal purposes. You can find our contact information to confirm these details in the reminder email for this webinar, or you can visit meraki.cisco.com/contact to find the telephone number there. So about Cisco Meraki then, for those of you who are less familiar with how we fit into the Cisco organization, and for those of you who do like to keep yourselves up to date with the latest technology news, we'll all know that Cisco Meraki was actually born out of an acquisition that Cisco made at the end of 2012, whereby we got acquired by Cisco. So even before we were acquired, we were the leader in cloud networking with over 20,000 customer networks deployed worldwide in over 100 countries. The initial technology that Meraki is based upon was actually founded back in 2006 as a part of an MIT research project that our then PhD candidate founders were conducting. Now they were taking a look at some pretty sophisticated mesh networking algorithms as a part of their research, and they came across something quite proprietary that went on to form what we refer to as Cisco Meraki today, which has a complete range of cloud-managed edge and branch networking products, wireless, switching, security, and also mobile device management. Now that we are part of Cisco, it's a very exciting time for us. In terms of organizational structure, we actually form a brand new group within Cisco. We're known internally as the Cloud Networking Group. As a part of this, we are increasing investment into Meraki technology to particularly grow the team in R&D, for example, so that we can really accelerate our product development process even more so than it is now. We are now able to utilize Cisco's huge global reach to really bring Meraki to new markets and new geographies that we weren't able to access as a single entity on our own. For those of you who are familiar with Meraki from before the acquisition, you'd be pleased to know that everything you've known in the past will remain the same for the foreseeable future. Things like pricing, licenses, product roadmaps, everything you've known in the past will remain the same. So I just wanted to very quickly describe the cloud-managed architecture that we've developed here, particularly for those of you who maybe are completely brand new to Meraki. So the major way in which we differ from traditional approach you may be used to, so say for example you want to have cloud-managed Wi-Fi at a few different locations, a campus, a headquarters, branch office, retail store, or a teleworker, which is becoming quite popular nowadays. In terms of hardware that you would need at any given site, with Cisco Meraki are just the Cisco Meraki wireless access points. There's no need for any additional hardware such as on-site Wi-Fi controllers or any overlay management systems. The same thing applies for our switches and also security appliances. No need for any additional hardware on site to be able to manage those using the dashboard. All of our devices connect securely to the cloud, giving us then the ability to manage them using just a web browser. An important thing to note is you don't have to deploy the entire stack of Cisco Meraki devices at any given location. Our devices are very interoperable with other vendors' networking devices. So if you do have an existing infrastructure in place today and you want to upgrade, let's say, for example, just your switches, you can upgrade them to Cisco Meraki switches and they will interoperate and work perfectly well with existing firewalls and access points that you may have. In that sort of deployment, you just have to bear in mind that you would only be able to manage the Cisco Meraki devices from the Cisco Meraki Dashboard. Finally, just wanted to describe our out-of-band cloud management architecture in every product. So hopefully by the end of the demonstration, you will be able to appreciate how scalable this architecture is, how we have pretty much unlimited throughput. We aren't offered any bottlenecks by on-site controllers that can actually even pose as single points of failure for your network, which we're immune to. You can add devices or sites in literally minutes by simply registering more devices into your inventory on the dashboard. The architecture we've developed here is also remarkably reliable. We have multiple data centers dotted all across the globe, and in fact, at any given time, each Cisco Meraki hardware device is simultaneously connected to 2 data centers. What this means is, in reality, if any one of these data centers was to go offline for whatever reason, it would seamlessly back up to the other data center, and there would be no perceived interruption in service for yourself. In terms of data center redundancy architecture, this is actually much the same way that Google's or Facebook's data centers operate. Even if you were unlucky enough to lose connection to the cloud, your local area network would actually still function, and we run a 99.99% uptime SLA. Let's move on to talking about security, very important subject. If I can draw your attention to the diagram on the left-hand side, what we have set up is a very simple network consisting of a Cisco Meraki wireless access point hooked up to a switch, hooked up to a router or firewall, and then that goes out to a T1 or DSL. When traffic does hit the T1 or DSL, you can see we have 2 very separate streams of traffic. We have the red arrow, which is denoting user traffic, and we have the blue dotted arrow showing management data. So you can see user traffic clearly bypassing the cloud. We have no interest in user traffic passing through the cloud. It wouldn't be a scalable architecture if we had it doing so. The only information going to the cloud is a secure encrypted connection flowing back management data. So because the way we have the architecture set up means we are fully HIPAA compliant. If you're a healthcare organization, for example, HIPAA is a very important healthcare standard in North America whereby no organization does any business within this very lucrative industry without having full compliance to HIPAA. Or maybe you're more interested in taking payment transactions over your network, in which case we are PCI payments card industry compliant, and we're actually level 1 certified there, which is the highest level of certification one can achieve. We also hold third-party security audits and daily penetration tests to bump up on our security measures. If you'd like to read up a bit more about our reliability and security information, feel free to log on to meraki.cisco.com/trust. So let's get into the mission then. So for those of you who don't know the background of what's happening here, well, an evil network genius has kidnapped the beloved Meraki dog, Daisy, and is holding her to ransom lest we complete one of 3 scenarios that he has released over the last few weeks. So another stipulation that the kidnapper has put into place is that the audience of the Mission Impossible 3 webinar shall decide which scenario we complete. So let's take a look at the scenarios that have been released over the last few weeks. First scenario, global #full stack network deployment. Bit of a mouthful. Let's go and look at what the requirements are in that. So we are required to set up a wired and wireless network at 2 branches, London and Sydney. London and Sydney have to be linked via Site VPN. They should have wireless, and the requirements of the wireless are that devices should be able to, or clients should be able to roam seamlessly between London and Sydney. The staff should authenticate with an SSID with username and password. Guests should have a click-through splash page, and on the guest SSID, social media and gaming applications should be blocked. Finally, there is the stipulation here that we need to create separate VLANs for voice and data on the switches. Let's take a look at the next scenario. A secure network configuration with disaster recovery. So in this scenario, we are required to design a secure network consisting of a security appliance, switches, and wireless access points. The network should be able to seamlessly cope with multiple failures, such as switches failing, security appliances going down, and also the network should also maintain function, and client policies should continue to apply during these failure modes. Final scenario is device management with network policies. So we want here to be able to authenticate network users against an Active Directory located at HQ. There should be the ability to authenticate users against multiple identity servers. And what we want here is the ability to enable more than one user to connect to one managed device. So types of users we are going to have here, unassigned. So on this unassigned user profile, we want to block social media applications, disable the camera and the ability to install iOS apps. User 1, this is a user that would actually log in to the iPad. they should have unrestricted access, but they're required to set a passcode on the iPad, and user 2, a different user group, would need to have iMessage and installing of iOS apps disabled. So with that then, I'm going to open up the voting pane. Please vote for the scenario that you would like to see us complete. Number 1, number 2, or number 3. Let's take a look at the polls here and select this poll. Right, this is now live. Hopefully you should be able to see that on your screens. Please choose one scenario, 1, 2, or 3. You have 1 minute until we close the polls, and we will then reveal the results of that scenario. Okay, folks, hopefully you've had a chance to vote. We've had over 80% vote, almost 90% actually, so I'm going to close the poll right now, and let's go ahead and share the results. Wow, this has been very, very close indeed. Let's take a look at these results. So, in third place, secure network configuration with disaster recovery. In second place, device management with network policies, and the winner by 3%, global hashtag full stack network deployment. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Let me hand over to Mr. Ethan Hunt, aka Simon Thompson. What do you say, Simon?
Well, I guess I accept this challenge. I'm fascinated that we've got a pretty much a three-way split here, but the decision has been made, so it's time to press ahead and let's move on with the configuration that I've been challenged with. So what I need to do at this point is just jump to the acceptance of this mission. I fully accept that I'm going to take this on. And here is the challenge that I'm faced with today, just to recap what Imran went through just a moment ago. By the way, good morning, everybody. I'm Simon Thompson, or aka Ethan Hunt, and I'm going to take you through this presentation, and we're going to have some fun here, I'm sure. So we're going to set up a wired and wireless network at 2 different branches in London and in Sydney. Obviously, the equipment is right here with me, but we are simulating just exactly the same as it would be in the real world if it was deployed in those various locations. So those 2 sites are going to be connected together with a site-to-site VPN so that we are able to communicate between those 2 locations. And on the wireless side, we are going to create the ability for users to successfully roam and have the same experience regardless of which location they're at, London or Sydney. We're also going to set up a couple of SSIDs on the Wi-Fi, so one for the staff to use, which will use proper back-end authentication with Meraki-based authentication. And we will also do guest SSID, so this will be for users who are not able to authenticate, your regular visitors to your location, just as you would probably do in the real world. We are going to block social media and gaming apps for those users. And we're also going to create separate VLANs for the voice and data on the switches, so we keep that data nice and separated. Now, here is a look at the, bear with me a second. Here's a look at the network diagram for this that we're going to go through in the next half hour or so. So it's quite simple. We have obviously our cloud, which in this case is effectively the internet. So these security appliances you see at the top of the pile, these will be connected directly out to the internet, to your ISP, and are able to communicate via the internet with each other, as we're going to see a little bit later on. But then we're going to add in a switching environment. So obviously you'll need one of those to connect all of your Meraki equipment together. And we support power over Ethernet, so we're able to plug an access point directly into that as well. Now, I actually have this equipment here in the room with me. So what we can do is just quickly show you a view of what the equipment actually looks like in practice. So let's just do that quickly so you can see that it is actually real. And so let's actually proceed with this, this actual presentation now. Right, so I'm going to switch across to my web browser and get logged in. So I have here the Meraki Dashboard. If you've not seen this before, this is just a regular Chrome browser. It is entirely browser-based management of your network infrastructure. And you're not actually connecting directly to the equipment as you do in traditional network environments. So as Imran stated earlier, what we're really actually going to do in practice is connect to our cloud servers, which in turn talk to the Meraki equipment. Now that gives us enormous strength when it comes to operating across multiple geographic locations. Now, clearly, if you are logging in via the internet, you're going to need a pretty secure connection. So we have that taken care of. Obviously, it's an encrypted connection both between the network admin and the cloud, but also between the network hardware and the cloud as well. And we also support two-factor authentication on this login. So it's a secure HTTPS site, as you can see, and there is two-factor available on here for logging in. So let me get logged in, and here is a list of organizations, and we can think of these like separate companies or franchises, for example. And these are the ones which I have ownership of with my account, with my email address. Now, I have previously built an organization called Mission Impossible. So we're going to go into that, but right now it doesn't have any networks in there. So we've got to actually create the networks to make this real. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get started straight away. Now here is a list of the hardware that I have purchased through Meraki, and so this is now in my inventory, and I can just grab devices from this inventory and create networks with that, and that's exactly what we're going to start doing. So we're going to start with the security appliance, as I showed you on the diagram at the top of the pile, and we're going to call this site London MX. MX is the code name for our security appliances, and I'm just going to pick the appropriate MX. It's an MX60 model, and we're going to build a network with that. So let's create that network. As soon as you've created a network, you're always taken into the product that we are actually talking about. So here is the security appliance. If I connect to this right now, we'll see that it's not going to be currently fully operational, but it's going to obviously be built up and configured over time. So this security appliance has already been deployed to the site. It's had its internet connection plugged in, but as you can see, there's nothing plugged into the LAN port, so there's nothing to the south of this MX at this point in time. So I'm going to go back now and create another network, and it's easy to just jump around between these. This is the selection tool that you use. So I'm going to create another new network, and this new network is going to be a switching network. So let me just go in and create this one. This is going to be called London MS. And I'm going to choose one of my switches, and this is the one that I'm going to use. It's an MS220-8P, which is an 8-port Power over Ethernet switch supporting PoE and PoE+. So let's create that switch network. So here's our switch, not currently connected. And we will sort that out in just a moment. I've got all the equipment right here, and I will plug it all in after I've connected created the wireless network that we want to use. So this is a final step. We're going to create a wireless network for London called MR. So there's a code name for Meraki Wireless. And again, I need to select the appropriate access point that I'm going to use. And that's this one down here. It's an MR18 access point, which is our flagship 11N AP. So let's create that network. All right, so you can see now that we have our 3 networks all set up. What I'm going to do now is just whiz across to my desk, and I'm going to plug equipment in physically so that we can start actually doing this. All right, so just bear with me a second. Here we have the flag depicting London. All right, so equipment is now connected. We've just got to be a little bit patient. We've got to wait for a couple of things to happen. While that AP is booting up, I don't need to wait really, because there are a couple of things I can do. First of all, if I go to my access points, I can start naming things, so I can give them friendly names to work with. So let me edit the configuration for this AP, and that enables me to change the name. So we're going to call this one London MR1. So it's good to have a naming schema like this, just helps you to identify things. And we're also going to put in the address for the equipment as well. So 10 Finsbury Square. and that's in London. So let's save changes. Notice it says there move map marker. We have comprehensive integration with Google Maps here. You can see that up here in the top corner of the screen. But what I want to do is go one step further than this. So if I zoom out on this map, let me just show you quickly. There is Finsbury Square in London, and what I'm going to do is upload a floor plan as well, because I want to be able to see the location of my access points and also potentially triangulate the location of clients once they've connected to those APs. So I'm going to upload a floor plan. I've got one here ready to go. You can see I'm well prepared here. So just double click on this one, and it's going to upload this floor plan for me. It's going to give me a chance to give it a name. I'm not feeling terribly inspired, so I'm just going to call it floor plan for now. But you can see here we have the ability to place it onto the Google map, and we can sort out the dimensions. And this can be in all kinds of different graphics formats, so very convenient. All right, so that's a really nice, important step to be able to take. If we look at now at our list of access points again, let's go in. We can see the AP is now operational, which means our switch must be up because the AP is a Power over Ethernet one. We've just simply plugged the AP into the switch, as you hopefully saw from the video feed there. So here is the AP right now. We just need to place it in the appropriate location. So I'm going to edit the floor plan. And here we are. Okay, so set position. So I'm just going to drag this AP around to where I want it to be and set the position there. Okay, good. So next thing I want to do is go in and start setting up the SSIDs for my Wi-Fi. So first thing I'm going to do is rename this SSID that's on here, and we're going to call this one staff. And I'm going to set up a second SSID as we saw on the challenge. This one's going to be called guest. So let me save the changes there. Now we support up to 15 SSIDs, so you can configure quite a few of these if you need to. It's generally a good idea to keep to a smaller number of SSIDs if you can. That's wireless networks. That just helps the performance of your Wi-Fi network generally. So now that I've created those SSIDs, it's time to go in and configure with the appropriate authentication that I want to use. All right, so here we're looking at the staff network. And for this one, I'm going to actually go and choose a particular association requirement called WPA2 Enterprise. And I'm going to actually select my own radius server this morning because I've got something quite interesting to show you here. This is going to be quite exciting. Let me save those changes. Actually, let me just change this to Meraki Authentication. That's the one we want to use. So we save those changes there. So we actually have two choices here. Let me just explain the difference between these two. If you are running your own radius server, like an Active Directory server or Cisco ICE server, perhaps potentially, you can use those for authenticating your users. And of course, many of our customers do exactly that. There is a nice benefit to that. If you are using your own radius server, it means if you are unlucky enough to be disconnected from the cloud for any particular reason, you're still going to be able to authenticate new users onto your network and use it as normal. So you don't rely on that cloud to be there for that operation. Today we're going to choose Meraki Authentication, and so I've selected that. Let me just scroll down. There's a couple of other settings I'd like to put on this screen. One of those is that I want to bridge my traffic. So by default, the APs will NAT the traffic. That means they will create their own little IP address range. They'll support their own DHCP services. We're not going to rely on that today, so what we're going to do is choose bridge mode. Now when I do this, what's going to happen is that the devices that connect to this wireless network will take their IP addresses from the MX, because the MX has a DHCP server built in for the default VLAN that's configured on it. So that's all very nice. Let's go ahead with that. And there's a couple more settings to do. I also want to make my Wi-Fi network operate nice and efficiently, so I'm going to choose dual band with band steering. Now what this does is ensure that any clients who are capable of operating in the 5 GHz band will actually do so. I'll also disable legacy bit rates on 11B because that also will slow my network down. I'm just trying to make performance as good as I possibly can get it. Now let's have a look at the guest network. Guests we're going to treat slightly differently. We're going to allow any guest client to connect to our network, but we're going to just present them with a splash page. So this will appear when a device connects. We'll see this a little bit later on. And you can change this, configure this splash page to look just the way you like. So there's actually a design tool for splash pages built right into the dashboard here, or you can even use your own existing third-party approach for captive, what we call a captive portal, for getting users connected via Splash. So let me make that change. And that's actually all I want to do on this particular screen. I'm just going to leave everything else as it is right now. So I'm happy with the rest of these settings. We'll use NAT mode for guest users connecting to this network environment. What I am going to do, however, is I'm going to create a firewall rule for users who are connecting to the Wi-Fi network as a guest. So let me go to Firewall and Traffic Shaping. So it's really super easy interface to use, as you can see. We make sure that we've selected the correct SSID up here. And now I'm going to select a firewall rule. We've got standard layer 3 ACL-based firewall built in here, but that's only really useful for blocking specific IP addresses. If we want to get a bit more clever and block servers which are out on the internet, we really need to use something like a layer 7 firewall. It's a little bit more efficient, and it's going to be able to identify when IP addresses change, ports change, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is block social web and photo sharing. That was part of the challenge. Now you'll see here I have an option to just select a subset of social web and photo sharing if I wished to. I'm just going to leave it on the whole category right now. Super easy to use, as you can see. It's just really, really easy to do this. We also had on the list gaming. So let me go and block gaming for users who are on this SSID as well. Notice we also have the ability to shape traffic. So there may be some applications we're okay for people to use, but we want to make sure that they're not consuming too much of our valuable bandwidth. So the traffic shaping tool is a very powerful one for doing that, and it's way easier to do this on a graphical user interface than it is in the wired world. Now, we're going to start to build up the replication of our two sites. So far, we've got our London site now looking just the way we want it to, and that's fine for them. But we want to start expanding this business, and we're going to really start using London as the template as we go forward. So to start doing this, I'm going to go to, on the menu system here, I've got Organization, and I have here Configuration Templates. So right now, as things stand, we have no configuration templates at all. I'm going to create a nice new one. And so I'm going to create a brand new template here, and I'm going to make this an appliance template. Let's give it a name. So we'll call it branch. 1 second, branch UTM template, and click on add. Now, it's going to ask us whether we want to target this to any particular network. We do, and we're going to initially tie this template to the London MX environment that we created earlier. So there we go. We can see we've now got a London template there. So I need to make sure I save this one. So here is our branch UTM template. So if I click on this template now, we can see there is the London MX ready to go, and we can actually now start to modify that. So see here, this is now selected London MX. What we're actually going to do is start working on the template itself. Now, what's happened when we do this is that some of the settings which were part of the individual security appliance menu system before have now been moved into the template. So that's actually how we're going to manage the appliance, because now every change we make going forwards would potentially impact every location that is following this template. So rather than select London MX, I'm actually going to go to my branch UTM template. So now I am actually configuring for everything which will be associated with this template. So you can see all these menu options which were traditionally just on the MX alone are now appearing here in the template. So let's go to addressing and VLANs. We're going to set up how that's all configured right now. So I'm going to enable VLANs here, By default, the MX security appliance will use just an automatically generated local area network. So it operates very much like your internet router at home. Nothing terribly sophisticated, but we actually want to have the ability to set up multiple VLANs down the road. So we're going to enable those VLANs there. I'm going to go in and edit my default VLAN. So first thing I'm going to do is change its name. I'm going to change it to branch default. The subnetting, we have a choice whether we use the same IP subnet on every location or we can use a unique subnetting arrangement. Now this is a little bit more sophisticated, as we're going to see. We're going to be able to build some quite clever firewall rules using this approach, and it's quite important to use this unique subnetting if you want to start connecting your locations together over VPN, because obviously you want to have different IP ranges. You don't want to have overlapping ranges there. So we'll stick with this default, this nice 10 network. So the appliance IP is simply the default gateway for this VLAN. I'm okay with using VLAN number 1. And as far as group policy, we're actually going to go ahead and use one of those. So we're going to create a group policy, which is going to be layer 7 file sharing. So I'll just create this one called file sharing. Blocked. Okay, click on update, and our templated IP range is now created. You can see here the subnet has changed, and it now shows that it's going to be a /24 network somewhere in the 10 series, which is obviously a huge private subnet range that you can use. Now we've pointed to a group policy which we haven't built yet, so let's go ahead and sort that out. So I'm going to build that. Oops, I need to just save changes. Very important not to forget that. Done. So let's go now to group policies. And here is the policy I'm going to use. So file sharing blocked. So what it's done is it's automatically built the policy for me, but it hasn't put any settings into it yet. So it's up to me to go in and fix that. So to do this, I'm going to go to Custom Network Firewall and Traffic Shaping Rules, create a Layer 7 Firewall Rule, which is going to block file sharing. There is the file sharing section. Once again, we have options under here, which we could potentially use. So we're going to just leave it on the default here. Let me save those changes. Now, next step is to build a firewall rule. Now this part's quite clever, and it's a little bit complicated at first if you're not familiar with it, so just bear with me so I can try and explain exactly what we're doing here. This is a standard layer 3 firewall, and what we're going to do, just for testing purposes, we're going to actually put in a firewall rule which is going to block access to one of Google's DNS servers. So we're going to run a ping test later on. We'll be able to see that actually operational. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to deny, and I'm going to use any protocol. And this is the interesting part. So rather than choosing a source IP address, we can actually go ahead and choose one of the templates we have built. So remember, we have this branch default VLAN template. And so if I select this, if a source, oops, let me do that again. There we are, branch default. So now if I select this, any source that is assigned to branch default, which will be any of the local area networks, will be tied to that. So destination, I'm going to put in Google's second DNS server. I expect many will be familiar with this. So let's just pump that in there. And I'm going to select destination port of any, and we'll just put block GDNS. All right, good job. So now we're going to go to the switches, and we're going to actually build up some configuration on the switch side of things. So that's enough for the security appliance for now. So here is our switch. You can see it is fully operational. Here is the status of that switch right now. We can see which is the uplink port. We can see where I've got a PC connected here. I'll show you this PC later on. And we have also a Power over Ethernet device. You can probably guess what this is. If I click on the port, you can actually see that it's a Meraki MR18. I am going to create port schedules for this. I'm only going to allow these ports to operate during a certain period of time. And this is great for both security and for potentially saving power. We've got templates built in here to make your life easy. You can just move these sliders around, do whatever you like. And this will obviously determine when these ports are available. So anything connected to those ports is just simply not going to operate when we're outside of those hours. So that's that part done. I'm now going to configure the switch ports and make a little bit of a change here. So ports 2 to 7, which are my user ports that will have end devices connected into, I am going to edit those ports simultaneously. So we've got a lot of power here. We do have the ability to go in and manage multiple ports at the same time. I'm going to turn these into access ports rather than trunk ports. So they're only going to be designed to carry one data VLAN and one voice VLAN. So we will leave the data VLAN at 1 and we'll change the voice VLAN to VLAN 20. So let me update those 6 ports. Here you can see the change has been made. And this is interesting and useful because when we do a sync later on, we're actually going to see a change happen. Now I'm going to plug a telephone into one of the ports on the switch here. So just watch the video and we'll be able to see that being plugged in. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so we have an IP phone now plugged in. It is drawing power from the switch, and in a few moments we'll be able to take a look at that switch and see what's actually going on there. So let me just go to the switch view a second, and I'll go into the switch. So here is the switch view. We can see that the switch is booting up right now. It is showing power over Ethernet is being supplied right now at this point. So if I select this port, we just need to be a little patient because obviously the phone's going through its boot cycle right now. Then we'll be able to see this all happening. So it's going to take a couple of moments. Whilst whilst we're waiting for that to happen, let's have a look at the PC that we've got connected. So let me just switch across to the PC that's also connected to this switch. And so let me log into that. And here we can see here's an IP address from the this is a NAT mode right now, so we can see that we're in VLAN 1. So if I do a ping test right now, I should be able to get out to no, not working right now. Bear with me a second. Let's go back and check the configuration on these ports. So access 1 and VLAN 20. So that is correct. That's our first VLAN. So we should be picking up an IP address that's in the 10 network. So let me just go back to this once again. What I'm going to do is actually physically disconnect this PC. Maybe it's got stuck with its IP address, and I'll plug back in again. All right, that's good news. That's what I wanted to see. It looks like I just needed to disconnect and reconnect the PC. So now we should be able to ping Google's DNS server. Yes, we can. So that's good news. So this is a PC that I have connected directly into the switch. We can actually see this is you can see the host name of this PC, Simon's MacBook Air. If we go back to the switch view now, have a look at the ports. Let's see what we've got. So if I click on this port here, I can see there is the device. This IP address will update in due course because it's out of date, so that will just refresh to the 10 IP address that we saw just a moment ago. I also want to take a look at a problem it looks like we have on the voice over IP switch. Let's have a look at this a second. So we have here a significant problem. It looks like I've got a challenge coming in. Somebody's trying to get my attention. Bear with me 1 second.
So it looks like we've got a sabotage. It looks like we've got a sabotage attempt from the kidnapper. We've just got a message on unconfirmed reports that he's tampered with the cable to the phone. So would you mind just checking that out?
Unbelievable. These are the curveballs I get thrown on a day-to-day basis. Here is the switch. It looks like we do have some sort of a problem. If I hover my mouse over here, this color you'll notice is completely different. And look, there's a message there. It says 1 gigabit link has failed. and the speed has been downshifted. So what could be possibly going on here? Let's have a look at the port in more detail. Firstly, I'd like to just point out that we have the VLAN here is VLAN 20. So this is an IP phone. It has been recognized as such using a discovery protocol, and what will happen is that we will therefore place any traffic from that phone into the appropriate VLAN. These details are still being filled in. They will complete over time. So we'll get an IP address in here. We will also be able to see what's been discovered. So we'll be able to see that this is, for example, and in this case, it is a Cisco IP phone. That information would actually populate on this screen as well. What I'm going to do to try to identify what's going on per my interruption back there is to run a cable test to see what's going on here. This is a really powerful tool, enables you to run a test to see what is actually going on with these cables. And we can see here that we have our 4 pairs. 2 of them are actually disconnected. It looks like we have a really unhealthy looking cable here. So what we'd probably want to do is get that swapped out for a healthy cable so we get proper full speed connection, because that one should be running at a gigabit speed. The other thing it does is it also runs a resistance test, so we can get an approximate length for that cable. That's very handy as well. Imagine that you're working remotely. This is incredibly powerful technology to have at your fingertips, the ability to be able to log in from anywhere around the world and be able to run cable tests on remote sites. Very powerful, and as we extend to Sydney, that's going to be really useful. Notice here, we've got the discovery protocol has kicked in, so we can now see that this has been discovered via one of the discovery protocols, CDP and LLDP, that we have a Cisco IP phone on here. Right, so we tested the PC earlier on. Let's just see if we are able to get to things. So I tested the IP ping. What I want to do now on this PC is just have a look and see if we can get to Dropbox, because that should be blocked for us at this point. And there we go. We can see that Dropbox is not working. Let's just verify that everything else is. So if I go to Meraki, that should work fine. Yeah, so I'd say that our block is working nicely there. So that's a good job. Now let's go back to the command line, and I want to test that firewall rule that I put in place. Remember, I put in a firewall rule for Google's second DNS server. So there's the first one, 8.8.8.8, but I'm going to do one for the second IP address, 4.4. Now look, we have a small challenge here, once again, because this ping is actually working. Now why is that? And I'm going to show you why that's happening, because it confused me when I first saw it. But let me go back to the group policy that we created earlier on. So I need to go back to our template. And if we go into the group policy we made, we're going to notice a couple of things. We have turned on a firewall rule here, which has a default allow on it. So this is actually going to override the block that I put in place earlier. So that's clearly going to create a problem for us. So we need to revisit how we're doing this. What I'm going to do for now is I'm actually just going to remove that group policy altogether. So confirm delete for that, and it's gone. So this change probably won't happen immediately. It'll probably take a few seconds to propagate through, but we should get to the point where we're able to drop our pings successfully to that server. In fact, look, it's working already. So this is good news. This means that the templated firewall rule that we created earlier is now in place and working properly. So we're going nicely. Let's have a look at Sydney. Time is against me, I can see here on the clock, so I've really got my work cut out to get this completed in about 10 minutes or so. So we're going to connect Sydney's switches and wireless. So let's do that super fast. I'm going to create a new MX network, first of all, for Sydney. So this is going to be called Sydney MX. And take it nice and easy. We've got one MX60 to choose from, so I will use that one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually bind this network to our template. Let me go back, so I've actually made a small mistake there. So Sydney, I'm going to just delete that a second, and we'll do that again. So it was an important step that I missed because I wanted to assign it to one of the templates. So let's go back in again. So Sydney MX, I can't spell Sydney this morning. And it is a security appliance, and we are going to bind it to a template called branch UTM template. That's the step I missed last time round. There's our MX60. Create the network, and we are done. I now want to create a site-to-site VPN between these two locations. So let's get that done. So I'm going to go to my template and select site-to-site VPN. This is an incredibly simple feature to use. We're going to go with a split tunnel VPN. And here is, you'll notice, and this is very cool here, if you think about what's actually happening here, once again, it is automatically picking whatever the real subnet is for that location, and it's going to simply include that in the VPN. So this enables us to easily connect all our sites together. So I'm just going to select yes there for the VPN, and that's it. VPN will now be set up for those two locations. So if I now go to the Sydney MX, we can have a look at VPN status, and this will be building up right now. It says disconnected right now, but this should show as connected any second now. It is showing that we have a healthy connection here. This is really a very good technology for working across network address translation and multiple locations. Very, very simple to work with. There we go. We can see the VPN is now connected. So these two locations are now able to talk to each other. They're able to ping each other's IP addresses. And if we go and look at the route table on Sydney's security appliance, we can now see both of the Sydney IP address range, which is in that 10 subnet range there, and then there's the London IP range. And we are connected. All is healthy. I am very happy at this point. Time to create another new network. We're going to create a switch network for Sydney, so Sydney MS, and this one we're going to choose the other 220 that we have, create that network. So now if I look at my list of switches, I can see there's the Sydney MS, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this switch from the London MS here. So this is going to clone a lot of the settings, a lot of the port restrictions and schedules that we created earlier on. So we've now created that. Let's go in and have a look at the switch ports. And you can see they're now configured exactly the same as London, but we are now on the Sydney MS. So that's a really nice step to have taken there. And finally, we need to create the wireless network. So let's go to Sydney MR. And this time we are going to do a clone. And we're going to clone from, I can't quite see it on my screen here. Let's just scroll up. Yep, London MR. And the AP that we're going to choose is our remaining MR18. Create that network. All right, so now we have our AP set up for Sydney. Obviously, we'd need to go in and upload a floor plan for that one, place it into the appropriate location, and so on. So this AP is not physically plugged in right now, so let me just plug those things in. Bear with me a second. Okay. Right, so our hardware is now plugged in. Now, what's interesting about this is that we are now setting up Sydney, getting that started. The equipment's booting up, and it's already been pre-configured. I haven't had to go in and redo all of those manual steps that we saw earlier on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually disconnect the London wireless AP so that we can show that we're going to be connecting to the Sydney wireless, but you're going to get the same kind of experience that you had previously. All right, hopefully you caught that on the video. I've literally just disconnected the AP. We can go and verify this just in case you missed it. If I now go to the AP, we're going to see that access point actually go offline after a period of time. It's showing online right now. That's because we need a few moments to sync up the dashboard and what's actually happened in the real world. So that AP is actually powered off, not operational at this time. So while we're waiting for that to happen, let's just try it one more time. That will go off in due course. Let's just switch across to the Sydney AP. And we can see that this one is going through boot process right now, so it's not yet fully operational, but it's very close. We should be up and running and online very shortly. What I'm going to do is switch across to an iPad that I have right here, and I'm going to look for that network on my iPad. So we're looking at an iPad I've got right in front of me here, and let's have a look at the Wi-Fi networks we have available to us. Looks like we have a rogue SSID that we need to deal with at some point. But there are the wireless networks. Now, you saw that I disconnected the APs. Let's just go back one more time and show you this. If I reload this screen, hopefully it'll be showing operational. Nope, still not operational. Oh, there we go. It's just gone green. So we are good to go. So let's get the AP, the iPad connected. So I'm going to go back to my iPad. I'm going to select the guest network here. And so we are connected to the guest network. We got our splash page. That's all working nicely. So we can continue on to the internet. And we are done. If I go back to dashboard now, I can see there's Simon's iPad connected. We are happy and good to go. All right, last thing I'm going to do before I call this a go is, we can actually verify that we are connected to the Sydney AP. And this is a really nice little tool that we have here. You can go, when you're connected to any Meraki device, just go to my.meraki.com on a browser, and you can see here that we are connected to Sydney MR. There it is showing there. So that's really nice and healthy. So I wanted to go to this and test out social, because that was one of the things we blocked earlier on. And Facebook should simply not work. It should just time out. Very nice. I'm very happy with this. All is looking good. I think it's time to wrap things up, because I can see we've got literally 2 minutes left on this webinar. So let me just... we're having some fun here in the room, let me tell you. Let me just switch across to my PC a second. And let me show you the details that we've got on here. So that IP address is for the PC, and what I'm going to do here is just switch my PC across. So watch the video again. I'm going to move my PC across to the Sydney site. Okay, so we pick up an IP address. Look, it's in the correct IP range again. There's the 10 IP range, and we should find that we get exactly the same experience again. So we go to here and run that ping test. Ping times out, which is exactly what we configured earlier. And now we're going to do 8.8.8.8, and that's working beautifully. Do you know what? I think we might just have completed the challenge. Let's go back. Let me go back to my slides. And yeah, that's exactly what we've just configured, and I hope you'll agree that's what it looked like. Let me hand things back to my trusty colleague, Imran, who will take us through the rest of the session.
Wow, well, thank you very much for that, Simon. Mission truly accomplished. Let's see if we've got Daisy outside, maybe. Maybe the kidnapper has brought Daisy back, hopefully. We're waiting for delivery. Oh my god, it's Daisy!
We got it!
There's Daisy.
There's Daisy. Hooray.
We have Daisy back. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished, folks. We've got Daisy back. No need to worry. Some say the evil network genius, his fingers are made of Ethernet cables. All we know is that we've just defeated the evil networking genius and saved Daisy. Right. On that, right on the top of the hour, great timing, Simon. Great demonstration. Hopefully, everybody is convinced that was live. We did have a couple of questions. Just it was going a bit too smoothly, Simon. So let's get into the Q&A. Before we do that, while you're writing down your questions, just wanted to talk about Meraki's excellent evaluation program. So everything we did today, hopefully you found that fun, but there is a real business element behind this. And hopefully you can appreciate some of the operational advantages that Meraki is able to offer. If you are keen to try out your own Mission Impossible, set up the scenario yourself and some of the things that we did, you can take out any of the equipment we have absolutely free of charge. You can set it up on your own network in about 15 minutes. There's complimentary technical assistance available should you need a hand setting up any of the equipment. It is completely risk-free. If you did find any of the devices weren't for you, you can simply pop them back in the box and return them back to us. We pay for shipping both ways. So free trials are available at meraki.cisco.com/eval and something we would highly recommend. But from everyone here on the Cisco Meraki team, the panelists, Simon, myself, hope you found the session useful and also fun. From Daisy as well, I think she's wandering around somewhere. Hope you have a great remainder of the day and thanks very much for attending. Bye-bye.